Hey guys, welcome to Making It Fun with Michael Miller Fabrics. My name is Heidi and today we are going to be making an artist roll and turning it into a project bag to hold all of our sewing notions. So let's get started. Alright, so today's project we are going to be making this lovely artist roll and we're going to make the pockets different widths and use it to put our sewing notions in. It's a great little thing to kind of roll it up and throw it in our sewing bag or in our tote bag when we're off to go to a class, or in my case to go teach. And this is originally designed as a paintbrush roll or an artist roll. So you could use this and make it for paintbrushes. You could do it for knitting needles, crochet hooks. You can make a short one for crayons, or you can make this one for your tools. So why don't we get started? First, let's talk about the fabric we're going to use to make this. I have chosen to use the Crafternoon collection from Michael Miller Fabrics. This is a September release coming out in early spring. So make sure if you're a shop, you get your order in for it. And if you're a customer, make sure you tell your quilt shops that you would love for them to order Crafternoon from Michael Miller. So I'm going to flip through it really quick and then show you the three fabrics I picked for today's project. This is just such a sweet, adorable collection with little kids doing art, with bunnies doing art. There's a sweet, sweet patch. There's this great stripe here that has everything all kind of together. There's the cross-stitch hearts, the blue daisies, and then I'm using the pink one with the bunnies and the little girl doing art. So these are the three I picked out of the whole collection. The cross-stitch hearts obviously is the outer case for this. And then we used the blue daisies for the flap and pocket and also for the ties, and then we use the sweet little girls with the bunnies in the background to use for the background, the inside lining of the project. So what do you need to do this project? First, the Be Creative pattern will walk you through on how to do this. This is a pattern that's available on our website, but I will link it below for a limited time that you can get it free to go with this video. So if you want to just download the PDF there, you'll be able to do that to make this. It also gives you the pattern to make a little artist apron as well. I shouldn't say little, it's an adult size apron, but it's a really fun and easy project. Normally this is a $14 pattern, but we're going to give it to you free with the video, so just link to it below. But I'm going to go over what you need as well, so if you just want to follow the tutorial, you can. So what are you going to need? From the cross-stitch hearts, you are going to need the one 10.5 by 15.5 inch strip, and you'll need one 5.5 by 15.5 inch strip. This is the outer part of the roll as well as the outer part of the flap. From the blue daisies, you will need three 5.5 by 15.5 inch strips. That will be for the interior of the flap as well as the lower pocket. And then for the ties, you will cut two 2 inches by 18 inch strips. And then finally, for the roll interior from this sweet little print, we will need one 10.5 by 15.5 inch piece. The other thing that I like to use with this is cotton batting. This is just, we're going to use one piece that's 10.5 by 15.5. It just adds a little body to the whole project, and actually it will pad it to protect your tools that are inside the roll. You will also need paper scissors, fabric scissors. You're going to need 2 snaps, and then for the snaps you're going to hand sew it on with needle and thread, so have your hand sewing tools available as well as your machine sewing tools. So once you have all your pieces cut and ready to go, we are ready to make the artist roll. All right, so step one is to find the corner template in the pattern and cut it out with your paper scissors. And then once you cut them out, we need to find our corner pieces, which are going to be one of the blue daisies. This is the interior. And then one of the hearts. This will be the exterior. Now I picked a print that is directional, so we want to make sure that we treat this as a directional print and make sure the hearts are going in the correct direction on the piece. You're going to place these right sides together, and then you are going to cut the curve on your piece for what is the top of your flap. And the reason I'm telling you that is because this is directional. So what we want to know is with the body of the piece, This is the most important part when you're laying out your pieces. This is the front. This is the outside of my artist roll. And then the flap is here. So if I do them upright, so this is consistent, when you open it up on the inside, it will be upside down. Or you can decide you want this in here facing upright, in which case when you put these together like this, it'll be upside down on the outside, but more importantly, we need to radius those corners at the bottom, not necessarily at the top. So if you radius these at the top, you will sew it together like this and it'll flip up upside down. You may choose to do that so that when it is open, they're all going the same way. Or like me, I'm going to choose to do this so they are going in opposite directions. So when I flip it down, you can see the hearts upright, which means for the purpose of this step, this is my top edge. Then this guy goes on top. And then we're going to use our artist roll template and we're going to align the straight edge with the straight edge. Find a marking pen. And you're just going to radius the corners. I just found these looked much nicer in the artist roll rather than have pointy straight corners. They also won't stick out of the roll. It kind of just gives it a little nicer finish. So once we've drawn those, we're going to go ahead and cut them and have our cornered edges. Get rid of all of that. And we have the two flap pieces right side together. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stitch a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around and leave this part open. That part we do not need to sew. We just need to sew up the sides, around the radius, across the top edge, and then back down the sides. So let me sew that up. Now that I've sewn down the short sides around the radius edge and along one edge there, I'm going to turn this right side out and I'm going to press it. And at this point you can choose to top stitch it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. All right, now we have our flap done. So we're going to set that aside for the moment. Move on to the next step, which is to place the two fabric B pieces together. These are going to go right sides together. This is going to be the pocket on the inside that we can divide up however wide or narrow we want. We can do narrow for pens and paintbrushes. We could do wider for like sewing notions. You can choose what you want to put in your roll. If you go too wide though, it won't roll up nice and snug, but you get to decide that when you make it. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're just going to sew on one long edge to create a piece with a top seam. We are going to flip it, press it, and top stitch it. So let's get that piece made. All right, now we have our interior pocket and our flap done, so the hearts will point down, and we are ready to assemble the artist roll. This is a really fun, very easy project. You can make these for lots of ideas, lots of gifts out of different fabrics. Again, this is Crafternoon from Michael Miller, which inspired the project to start with. Now we are ready to assemble the artist roll. So the first thing you're going to do is place down your 10.5 by 15.5 piece of batting, your interior fabric, and then the pocket that we just made. We're going to clip these 3 layers together, and I'm going to just baste them at the pocket edge with an 1/8 inch seam. That way things will not slip and slide while I'm trying to put the entire roll together. So we're just going to clip this all nice and flat, take it over to the machine, and sew this on. All right, so we have that piece all stitched together. Now is when we are going to divide up our pockets. So you're going to need a ruler, and you're going to need a marking pen that is fabric, either washout marker or an iron out pen, a chalk marker, something that these lines you don't want them to see after you finish stitching. And if you look at the pattern, we give you the pocket measurements all broken out if you want to have skinny little pockets for pens. Because I think I'm going to use this more for a few sewing notions, I am going to make my pockets a little bit wider so I can put pens in, plus I can put scissors or some of the tools in my sewing machine drawer. So all of these things would mean my pockets would need to be a little bit wider than what I've drafted in the pattern. So you can choose how many pockets and how wide you want them to be. Don't go real skimpy and do like a 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch on the edge, because you have to allow for your seam allowance. So there's a little warning, but now you get to divvy up these pockets however you want, or you can follow the pattern. So for me today, I think I'm gonna do 2-inch pockets. And when you mark fabric anytime with a ruler, it is easier if you start in the center and work out to each edge versus trying to start on an edge. That will actually can distort the fabric and it pulls. So if you are marking anything, so like this one, we're gonna do 1.5. Again, start in the center, go out to the edge, go down. Maybe I'll do like a 2.5. I'm not gonna go any wider than 2.5. Then I'm gonna do maybe a 1 for a pen. I'll do a couple 1s. This will be for pens. You can see how much thought I'm putting into this. We're gonna do another 2-inch pocket. Now, if you know exactly what you're putting in, you can design the pockets to fit that. But right now I have a bunch of little tools here that we're gonna put in it, and I'm gonna guesstimate. And I'm going to keep them all a little bit wider because it's going to be for tools. So I've got all my lines. Now before we put this together with anything else, I'm going to go over and I'm going to top stitch down each of those lines, and then I will have all my dividers in place so that when we assemble it, we are all good and we don't have to stitch it through the other fabric. So let me go stitch these up. Now, so I have now stitched down all of my pockets so my pieces will fit in here. And this one can go in here. So you get the idea. We've got all our tools in our pockets. I did go ahead, used a friction pen to mark the lines. So I went over and I ironed out the lines so they all disappeared. And now our interior is done and we are ready to move on to the next step. The next step is going to be to make the ties for our piece. And how we are going to do that is we have these 2 strips here that are 2 by 18, and I'm going to take them over the ironing board first. This is my favorite way to make straps because you don't have to turn anything right side out. You just fold this in half and iron it. Then you're going to take this edge into the center line and this edge into the center line, iron both of those sides, and then you roll it up like this. So you have 4 layers of fabric, but you have a finished edge on either side, and that is what we're going to do to top stitch. Now, we also have the end is going to show. So before we do the big long folds, I am going to fold in the edge a 1/4 inch and iron that. And then when we roll this all up, we'll have 3 finished edges and nothing will fray. The other side is going to get caught in the seam, so we don't worry about that. So let me go press these. All right, so how we put this together is we are going to take our ties with the raw edges and we're going to align those raw edges with the center over here, and we're going to clip them. And then these are going to stay inside. So I'm going to kind of just fold these up and stick them in one of my bigger pockets so I know they're not going to fly out into one of my seams as we're sewing this together. Next is to put the flap in, and the flap again goes this way and it'll flip up like that. So we are going to center it. It is not going to go all the way to the edges. That was when I went all the way to the edges, it didn't want to flip correctly. So we are going to go almost to the edges, but you really need to make sure it is in the center of the piece, and you have about a 1/4 inch on either side. And we're going to clip this into place. And you saw I kind of tugged that to make sure I've got a 1/4 inch, because you do not want to catch this in the seam. So then I'm going to flip up each corner. We've got this all sewn together. We have our opening. So now we are going to turn this right side out through the opening. This is the best part. You get to see what it looks like all finished. Now we've got that corner nice and tight, and there is the ties. And here goes the flap. How pretty is that? So we just have this opening. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it over to the ironing board. I'm going to press it all down. and we will top stitch down just the body. We're not going to worry about the flap because it's already been top stitched, but we will top stitch along here, down here, and across. That will close our opening and give us a nice finished feel for our wrap. I will be right back. All right, there we go. It is all done and ready to use. So it rolls up like this. And you can tie it. Now, I talked about snaps at the beginning, and I'm going to show you why, and you can decide to add snaps, which I probably will after. This part likes to shift when you fold this up, but if you put a little snap in each corner, this will hold it in place over your tools. So I will sew one of these here and one of these here, and I will snap that down over the tops of my tools, and that way when I roll it up they don't come out. But that is an optional step. Some people are like, I will not hand sew for anything, so I will leave that one up to you. But now you could put all your tools in here. So we're gonna pop that in there and this in there, my pen, my stylus, my seam ripper, my two purple things can go in this guy. My tweezers can go over here, and I still have a wide one for like a pair of scissors. All right, so now that I've hand sewn the snaps on, you can see I can just snap these over my little tool tops. It'll keep everything nice and protected, and it keeps the flap aligned so that when we go ahead and roll this closed, we can then just wrap the cords around, tie a nice bow, and we are ready to take our tools on the go. So I'd love to hear in the comments below if you joined me in making this adorable artist roll and what treasures you put in yours. Did you go knitting, sewing, crafting, painting, you know, drawing, or did you make a little short one for crayons for somebody special in your life? So as always, I want to thank you for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, hit the bell to be notified anytime Michael Miller drops a new video, and I hope you're still making it fun with Michael Miller Fabrics, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!